All right, welcome back. Got my drawer slides delivered, and we're gonna get these installed. And the first number we need to know, the first measurement we need is this offset between the side of the drawer, this goes on the drawer side, and this goes in the cabinet. We need to know what this dimension is. On this one we got 3/8 of an inch. And that means we got, so there's 3/8 of an inch clearance. If we were to mount this on here, we gotta mount this up 3/8 of an inch on the drawer side. But I like a little bit more clearance on the bottom of this runner, hardware on the side of the drawers. So we're gonna bring this up 1/2 of an inch. By doing that, now we have 7/8 of an inch here, but we need a little bit of clearance so the drawer bottom doesn't drag on the cabinet. So we have a 7/8 clearance. We're gonna mount this 3/4 of an inch up on the side of the drawer when we get to that point. So the 1/2 inch spacer is for the side of the cabinet. We'll start at the top here. And then we have to have something to support the drawer runner while we screw it in on the back of the cabinet. We'll do this side first. So we'll just stick the 1/2 inch spacer on here, get a measurement, that's 19 5/8. I already pre-cut a stick for this one. There's our 19 5/8, so this can go in the back here to hold up our runner as we screw it in. So we can just set that right in there like that. Like so. I've got some number 6 by 5/8 long screws. We're just going to put 2 screws per drawer slide on this setup. The other thing to note is you want the front of this runner back about 1/8 of an inch from the front of the cabinet. Switch this to that side, switch that to that side. Grab another drawer runner. That. So if you take a look again, just to reiterate what I was talking about, if we were to put the piece that goes on the side of the drawer, that's going to go on here like this. If we were to stick this in here and measure, we have 7/8 of an inch. But we don't want to use that exact 7/8 of an inch because I'll put the drawer bottom right on here and it'll be dragging. So we're going to put it on here, and we're going to use a 3/4 inch wide spacer to hold that in the right place. And that's just going to go on right flush with the front of the front of the drawer box. And the most important thing doing these full extension slides, they're not very forgiving. Undermount slides are way more forgiving, but they're a little bit more expensive and harder to get, I guess you could say. Like, you can get full extension slides pretty much at any hardware store. Just keep track of which side's the front so we don't mix them up, don't want to flip-flop them. Once you got those 2 in, just take the drawer box, slide it in that hole, and in that hole, give it a push, just like that. Got a working drawer. So when this goes in tight, it's a little bit recessed, but that's what we want, because that'll make sure this front, when we mount the front on this thing, will actually pull tight to the cabinet. So that's that one. And we're going to do the same thing for the second one. Put our 1/2 inch spacer on here, cut a little stick for support, and we'll do the next one. So I don't think I finished saying the most important part with full extension slides is both sides have to be perfectly in plane with each other. You can't have one up and one down. They need to be perfectly parallel in this direction, and you want a little bit of clearance on the side. So like I said, the spec says 1/2 inch. But I've done that and it gets too tight. So this here we have just over 1/2, and this side just over 1/2. So subtract probably 1 1/16 from your opening width, and that should get you just enough clearance to make things work nice and smooth. Now that I'm looking at this, another tip would be, if you are making drawers, you could even err on the side of a little bit too small versus a little bit too big. Too big, you're never gonna get it to go in. If you're too small, you can actually use these other mounting points on this drawer slide. Right in here, you can see that it kind of bends. Rather than putting the screw back here where it's fixed, you could put the screw in one of these holes and use those to elevate or push the drawer slide off the cabinet side just a little bit. You just screw those in, the bendy ones, pry it out a smidge, and that will be kind of floating against the cabinet side, but it will still have the support needed to hold up a drawer. And this on the bottom one, we're just using 1/2 inch shim. We don't need the back spacer, just the 1/2 inch general shim, and that's it. So I'm going to finish screwing these in, mounting the sides on the other drawer boxes, and then we'll work on mounting drawer fronts to this, which are already pre-cut. They came off the CNC, ready to go. I just haven't had drawer boxes to mount them on. All right, that's those two. And that's our 1/8 of an inch I was telling you about. We got that little bit of clearance there just so these aren't dragging on the bottom. Before we started. We got a cabinet with 3 working drawers. Next step is to get our drawer fronts mounted on. We'll have 4 screws per drawer box up in the corners. And then pre-drill the holes, put the screws in, and then we'll mount the drawer fronts. So let me get those parts put together. That we need to get these drawer fronts mounted on the drawers. Step 1 is to drill the drawer boxes for the mounting screws, and we're going to come in like 3/4 of an inch from the inside edge so we can get a screw gun in there. Maybe an inch. We'll go an inch in, and then come down an inch, and we got to figure in for the drawer side. So we're going to make a template to mark all this stuff out. So our drawer side is 3/4 plus an inch clearance. We're going to come in 1 3/4. Then we're going to come down 3/4 of an inch. And this block is the height of this smaller drawer front. So then the bottom mounting screw, we need to come up our 1/2 inch clearance plus our 3/8, 7/8 drawer. So that's 7/8. And then we need another inch of clearance off of that to be able to get the screw gun on there. So we're going to come up 1 7/8 for the bottom screw. And then once I got both of those measurements, we just make sure they're parallel to each other. I actually laid this out for this side. So look at this. We're going to be 1 inch in, 3/4 of an inch down, and then 1 7/8 up. So we're going to drill this little piece of 1/4 inch plywood so we don't mess up the holes on this. It's only an 1/8 inch bit, so we don't remount these holes and make them too big. We just hold our template up here, and this is a automatic center punch for woodworking. Just stick it in the hole, give it a click and a click, and you end up with 2 marks that you can use to drill out your drawer fronts. So this is the right length for these 5-inch drawer boxes. And then for the bigger drawers, we'll use the top. We'll use the top to mark the top. Then we'll use the bottom to mark the bottom. And then you just flip this over to get the mirror image of it. Oh, wasn't supposed to do that one. Use the bottom to mark the bottom. And we want the pilot hole I'm using here is going to be just a little bit smaller than the screw. I'm using 1 1/4 Kreg screws. You want the screws to bite in this opening just a little bit. Or in that pilot hole just a little bit. The reason we want those holes to be a little bit small, because now we're going to put the screw in, and we want it to bite on that hole, and we're going to leave it sticking out of the front of the drawer just a little bit. I'd say a little bit, like 1/4 of an inch. We're going to use that to mark the back of the drawer front. So if you look at these fronts, this is actually 3 separate pieces. These are all pre-cut for this cabinet, and the grain matches, so we have to keep them in line as we go. So we're just going to hold this on with the flush with the bottom of the cabinet, and we're going to just center it left and right. And just give it 2 little taps. Just see where those were going. We're going to drill them out just a tiny bit. Don't drill through the front. just a little bit, so that way there you can come back and hang it on this drawer front, on those screws, and then put the 2 screws in. And like that, we're centered. We're not quite flush on this side, so we're just going to loosen that screw up. Lift up a tiny bit. There's actually a little bit of wiggle room with the holes because they're self-drilling screws. And I'll do the same thing for the second one. I hope I didn't drill these 2. The second one's actually a little bit easier. And this time, we're going to just push that in. I got a piece of 1/8 inch MDF. Set that on there as a spacer. Set it on that. Slide it over until we're centered on the cabinet. And 2 taps. And the reason I'm not putting all the screws in is because that's your cheap insurance policy right now. So if something's out of alignment, you can use those other 2 holes to readjust afterwards if you need to. So we'll just do 2 holes per cabinet or per drawer front now, just to make sure things work. And then we'll put the rest in. And if you still run out of insurance, you mess this up twice, and run out of room or adjustment on the bottom holes, the last resort is you can always oversize these holes once you have them. Once you have it close, so you would mark your drawer, mark that, drill these with a tight hole, and then you could oversize these as big as you almost need and put a washer under that screw so that you can then take this front and move it around. Make sure I get the grain to match. 1/8 inch shim. Center it left and right. And tap, tap. I don't know if I left those screws out far enough. Just barely see it in there. There we go. 3 drawer fronts mounted, grain matching. It's more of a frameless contemporary look, but it's just a sample cabinet to stick in my hallway. So now that everything's lined up, nice and square, we're flush on the bottoms, our reveals are all parallel, we can put in the rest of our mounting screws. Just like that. We're done. Next step, and the final step, is getting 3 knobs put on here. Let me go grab those and we'll lay those out and install them. All right, and we're back. I got 3 brass knobs, reclaimed from a previous project, 3 screws. Step 1 is just going to be laying these out. was going to just put it a little bit above center. And this measurement here is 2.5. It's all about aesthetics. You can put them wherever you want. You can put them centered. You can put them all the way to the top. You could do 2. This is all your choice. So we're going to go 2.5 down. And we're actually going to do that on all 3 of them if this reaches. Nope, we're going to have to go a little bit extra on this one just so we catch the actual drawer box too. This one will go 3. And we're going to go centered this direction. So 25 3/4 divided by 2. 12 7/8. Off a little bit in this direction, so we'll do 3 this way, 2.5 this way. And all my drawer hardware I put in when I use a 3/16 bit. You gotta be careful working on stuff like this on the bench because if all these drawers roll out at the same time, it will be tipping over. And that completes our 2-part series on making and installing rabbeted drawer boxes. If you didn't see the first part on actually making the drawers themselves, go back and watch that. If you could, give this video a like and subscribe and share with your friends. Thanks.